There's no denying it. Gold is hot right now. Prices are soaring and experts are predicting even more to come. Bank of America is saying gold will rise to over $2,200 an ounce later this year. So gold is already a safety net for your hard-earned money, and now when everything is so uncertain, being safe really counts like never before. Noble Gold is offering a 5-ounce America the Beautiful coin for any qualified IRA or old 401k rollover. Terms apply. A solid silver U.S. Mint issued coin celebrating our national parks, free with every qualifying precious metals IRA or 401k rollover. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold Investments. 877-646-5347. NobleGoldInvestments.com. NobleGoldInvestments.com. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another inspired conversation. We're very excited to introduce today's guest to you. You've heard about his company often on our channel, and today we're going to learn all about the ins and outs of gold from Collin Plume, president of NobleGoldInvestments.com. Colin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks. No, excited to be here, and obviously a big fan of your show, and just looking forward to having a good conversation about precious metals.
We appreciate that, and we appreciate all the work that you do. As I've said off camera, so many people reach out and just say how excited they're about the experience that they're having with Noble Gold. But before we go into all of that, I kind of want to, I always like to get to know our guest a little bit and our audiences too. So what made you go into precious metals? I know that's not where you started out, but what made you go into gold and silver and the other precious metals?
Yeah, well, my first experience with precious metals was my grandfather collected old silver coins, Morgan dollars, pre-1965. They call them junk silver, but there's, silver coins that were in circulation that are 90% silver. And so, I had a number of interactions with my grandfather with those coins, and he eventually passed away and gave that collection to my father, who has always said that would be my collection, and he would give me a few coins. So early on, I learned about, silver mostly and got, slight education on it. But my father's an entrepreneur. Both of my grandparents were entrepreneurs. So in different industries. So I was sort of destined to fall down that path. And so I've started businesses from, 10, 11 years old all the way through my life, and had some success early, and then had some real failures in my 20s in different businesses, startups that I started. And then just sort of ended up coming back into precious metals about 14 years ago. It just kind of happened. I had a friend working at a place. I was having a number of health issues. I had to have some pretty massive surgeries on my feet, and I had my hip replaced. I had a bunch of stuff happen. So I sort of came back into precious metals and thought, I'll be here for a year and probably get back into real estate, which is what I was doing at the time. And then I just fell in love again with gold and silver and the process and IRAs. And I've been doing it ever since. And it's sort of, I think it was the thing I was sort of meant to do the whole time. But as a lot of people know, sometimes you take different journeys in your life to find the thing that you're really good at or the thing you're passionate about. So it took me some time to find this, and luckily it's turned out really well.
See, that's a sentence I hear very often. It's kind of what I was meant to do, or finding back to purpose and passion. And we're in a time where a lot of people, I believe, feel that way. We're also in a time that is extremely uncertain, right? I mean, there's so much going on. And one of the things that people always ask us, how can we prepare and protect ourselves? And one of the things I always say is, if you're looking into protecting your assets or having something that will see you through the tough times, historically, gold and silver have proven to be very, very valuable in all times. Mm-hmm. But can you point to past periods where especially gold and silver were really valuable to have and help people through depressions, through recessions, and the likes?
Well, if you look at the early 80s, 1980s, when inflation was higher than it is today, well, some people believe inflation is actually similar if you really take all the numbers. But anyways, gold and silver did really well during that time period. Gold and silver really performed well during that early 80s time period. And then, also through after 2008, 2009, gold really started to take off again. The government did a quantitative easing from 2009 to 2011, which is where they were expanding the money supply, which is sort of the opposite of what they're doing or what they're attempting to do right now, at least with the Fed and keeping interest rates low. And so you really saw gold take off during that 3-year span, and also silver. So a lot of people that got hurt in the stock market or got hurt in other investments did really well in precious metals. And then I think today, pretty much since the pandemic, we've seen gold and silver really do well. Obviously, people are concerned about what assets to put their money into, and equity market stocks have not done very well. The real estate market over the last 12 to 14 months has performed pretty badly for most investors. So yeah, people are looking at, where do I put my money? And, even though the banks are offering higher rates on money in the bank, it's still much lower than inflation. Obviously they're telling you, 3.5%, 4%, which seems great. But when inflation's 7 or 8% or potentially higher, depending on what numbers you're looking at, it doesn't really keep up. So that's why gold has been very popular. It's up, 10% this year. And silver also has been a very popular option. So that's, I think, one of my oldest clients when I started, he bought a huge amount of gold and silver from me in my first year. And then every year he would buy some. And I would always ask him, like, what's the motivation now? And he said, similar to insurance on your house, every year insurance on your house, they raise the amount to rebuild your house because it gets more expensive. And he said, this gold that I'm buying is my insurance. And he said, if things get better, I'm great. But if things continue to go the way that they are, I feel great that I have this gold and silver as my insurance. And so he continues to buy every year and until he thinks things are better. And obviously they've just continued to get worse, and we've expanded our debt and a number of things that we're doing. So he just feels more comfortable with having gold as part of his insurance blanket.
So we're seeing, as you said, inflation, and I agree with you. The inflation number is always heavily manipulated because some of the most important goods are not counted into inflation.
Correct.
Like food, for example. But there are other things that are happening. We're approaching, I think, $33 trillion in debt. We're also seeing the yuan taking up, a lot of steam and really picking up. And there are fears now becoming louder and louder that the dollar will lose its status as the world's reserve currency. So,
Correct.
Then you see just Argentina today raked up their interest rates 97%. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's very, very dangerous what is happening right now. So what would happen if the dollar really loses its status as the reserve currency? And how would investment in gold and silver help and basically create peace of mind for people?
Well, we'd have to there'd have to be another currency that would replace it, or we could go and it's been thrown around a long time, and they could go to a basket of currencies, and that's what the BRIC nations want to do. They want to go to, we can use the dollar, or we can use the euro, or we can use gold, or we can use some other currencies. They want to have that flexibility to choose. And that makes sense for them. Obviously, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us, and it hurts us. Central bank holdings or notes of dollars, if you go back from 2002, 70% of the major central banks had the dollar as in their reserve. Now we're looking at just under 60%. It's at 59% currently, like right now from the IMF reported. So it's slowly shifting away. And I would argue that a lot of that money is being moved into gold. I think that's a natural way, because you have to think of a central bank, they do have to be conservative about what they're holding. And so, yes, they're concerned about our debt. So maybe they're moving away from some of our debt, some of our bonds. But what other thing can they buy? And so I think gold has been a really popular option. And last year was the biggest central bank buying of gold in 20 years before that. The first quarter has also been very aggressive for buying of gold. So countries are really buying gold as a hedge. And it's an easy hedge for them because it's easy to trade with gold. You can lend against gold. There's just a million different ways that you can use it in bartering. and everybody knows what it is, and it always has value all over the world. And even, just in the US, you're seeing states like Texas moving towards having a gold-backed digital currency because they have a gold reserve. They have their own sort of mini Fort Knox in Texas, and so they're preparing themselves to bring out a currency that would be backed at least partially by gold, probably a good amount by gold. So you're seeing this shift to gold. So I think the only positive that we have is that most fiat currencies are in trouble, right? What's happening in Argentina, what's happening all over the world. So the dollar's also in trouble. So we'd have to find a better option, right? And that's the only thing sort of that's kept us in control, is that we've still been the better option. But going to this basket of currencies is something that a lot of countries want to do. And in a way, it would, and I know it would hurt us also, but we wouldn't be able to print money at will if we had a basket of currencies and we weren't the reserve. So in some ways, it could benefit the fact that we wouldn't just be able to print. It would be a shock. We'd lose value initially. But in the long term, the idea that we wouldn't be able to print at will and just keep it going, maybe someone could argue it could be a benefit to us.
I would argue so. I think we need to return to sound money. We're having an out of control system. There's another thing that a lot of people are concerned about, and tradition or historically speaking, a lot of people that tend to invest in gold and silver are more on the probably conservative side. They're also concerned about privacy. They're concerned about safety. How do you see this current move to central bank digital currencies everywhere, especially in relationship to gold and silver, or in relation to the precious metals?
I think everyone's buying. I think you were like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, you were more accurate. I think today everyone's buying gold. I have friends on both sides, and everybody is talking about gold now. I don't think it's just as much a conservative purchase anymore. I think people are finally kind of waking up. When I started in the business, it was sort of fringe, buying the idea like, why would I do that when I can just keep everything? I remember having these, I could just keep my money in the bank, or I have my financial advisor and I can just click a mouse. Like, why would I do what you're doing? That was 10, 12 years ago. Those conversations have changed a lot now. I think even younger people who you wouldn't think would be interested in this are now becoming more interested, because the one thing that gold has that none of these other investments have is there's no counterparty risk, which means you own this gold. It's yours, or this silver, whatever we have. That is unique. There's not many investments that you own that there's no risk. Stocks, there's obviously a risk. Real estate, you could own it by yourself, but there's times like this where it's really hard to move real estate, unless you just want to, slash the price. So the nice thing about gold is that you don't have that big risk of the other party going away, which is, a big reason why people buy from us as opposed to ETFs or the stock version, is because they know what they have and it's theirs. They don't have to rely on the stock or the manager to do the right thing. And I can tell you without a doubt, and I won't name names, but during the pandemic, I can tell you this, it was very difficult to get gold and silver. It was nearly impossible, especially silver, because, obviously with COVID, everything, the trucks weren't moving. But not only that, mining was down. A lot of the mining in the world happens in Mexico that comes to the US. It was shut down. And there was never a moment that any of the ETFs on the stock exchange stopped selling their. And I can tell you that from someone that was buying millions and millions of dollars, it was almost impossible to get the amount that we're buying in contracts. So I know that they did not have gold and silver backing every ounce. We were able to, because I had relationships all over the world, and I was still able to lock up pricings during the pandemic. Yeah, it was delayed shipping. Everybody's delayed on shipping, but we were still able to lock in pricing. And so when silver hit $14 an ounce and we had this flood of buying, we sold it, locked it in, and people rode that all the way up. And I don't know if you remember from the pandemic, went from $14 to $29. So some people just kind of made out like bandits during that time period. And it was amazing. And it was one of the greatest feelings in the world as an owner of this business to see people, more than double their money in a short amount of time. So, it's changing now. The dynamics are changing. People are changing. Younger. The other thing that's interesting, our buying demographic has dropped by almost 7 years. It was like 49. Now we're hitting 42, 43 average. It's really shifted a lot younger recently over the last 1 to 2 years. So I think people, it's money, getting ready for retirement. It's on both sides of the aisle. Everybody needs to be ready. Everyone doesn't believe that Social Security is going to be there. And so I think it's important for everybody to just be responsible. As you mentioned, sound money, John. It's that's the most important thing, is that we know the government's never going to run their books the way you and I do and pay off our bills and stay out of debt. So how do you manage your finances and your investments to protect yourself against that scenario of the defaults or just debt going up or inflation? You just have to think that these things aren't going to change. And so you just have to prepare yourself for it.
I couldn't agree more. So I know safety, security, you have a very high standard also in terms of having that gold, those precious metals, having it in the vault and people actually being able to verify that. But who is Noble Gold Investments for? What's the minimum that people need to bring in as an investment? And what's the maximum, if you will, or is it open end?
We don't have a maximum. We've done, transactions, well into the 8 figures. So there's no maximum. You need a pretty big safe for that one. If it's gold, maybe not as big, but for silver,
if it's silver, for sure, yeah.
You need a bigger. And then on the minimum we recommend is $5,000 with us for a purchase, because we offer a very unique service. You get a person that's actually hand holding you through the process. You're going to have a representative. They're going to walk you through it. They're going to talk about the different coins. We spend a lot of time with people. We really have gone away from what other people say we should do, which is do AI and do all that stuff. We're a people-driven business. So we spend a lot of time with people explaining their options. And it changes. Sometimes some bars are a better value, a better price. We go through all that stuff with people. We focus on bullion, coins, and bars. These bars, these are, will get you the most bang for your buck. So that's what we focus on. There's, millions of different coins you can buy that you could go down that rabbit hole. But most investors in this, they want the most value. They want bars and coins that are to get the most value for them.
That's me.
Yeah, that's you.
I want the most bang for my buck.
Exactly. And so that's why we focus on a lot of firms. They sell some of these semi-numismatic coins or numismatic coins, and numismatic coins, you can do okay in that market if you really, really study that market, you really know what you're doing. But most people don't have time to do that, or they just don't have the love for it. For the mass of the population, they just want bullion, coins, and bars. And so because we do such big volume, we've done over $2 billion in sales over the last 2 years. So we get great deals on precious metals, and we pass that savings on to clients because we're buying in such dramatic bulk. And so that's what we really have focused on. And that's why you get good feedback, is because we focus on, the right kind of client that understands this. We don't rush anybody into this, and we sell bullion, coins, and bars. And I tell this to people all the time, but we do turn away a lot of business because we want to make sure that the business is right. We don't take every piece of business, and we want to make sure that people understand what they're doing, and we know it's a long-term relationship. So whether they're getting it delivered to their doorstep or they're doing an IRA, we're around as long as you buy metals from us. So it's really a partnership between us and the clients.
Well, that's wonderful. And it's good to hear that it's people oriented in a time where AI gets so overvalued over people. And I love the personal experience. And that's why we really wanted to have you on today, because it's wonderful when people get to see the face, that represents the business. You just mentioned IRA. So when people want to switch over to a gold-backed precious metal backed IRA, how intense is the process for the average person?
The paperwork takes 5 minutes. It's on our website. You can just fill out the form there. And then we have a full IRA team. So you'll have a representative that will help you through, but you also have an IRA team behind you. So they're going to do 99% of the heavy lifting. Really, the biggest part of the process for people, and it's easy and hard, I guess, is if you just get a statement. That's really, if you have a statement, and it doesn't even have to be the most recent statement. It could have been the 2 quarters before, whatever it is. If you have a statement, it's got the account number on it, you get that to us. It's going to be a lot easier getting it through the process. And sometimes, you lose it. We find another way to get it. And, we do all that stuff too. But if anybody has a statement, pretty much everything else is easy, whether it's, a traditional IRA to a traditional IRA, or maybe it's an old, a lot of people left jobs. So they have all these old 401ks. And you can roll all those into a traditional IRA, self-directed IRA. So we do a lot of those too, because it's not good for people to have a lot of small IRAs because you're not going to watch it. You don't know what fees they're going to charge. It's really important if you had, and I've had people that, they worked at Starbucks 12 years ago and they forgot, and they got 12,000 in there and they forgot about it. I mean, that's a perfect reason right there why you should never just leave money, because eventually if you don't, they'll just keep taking fees out. And if you don't collect that money could be gone. And so it's really important to merge all those into one account, whether you're going to buy gold or whatever you're going to buy. You should get them in a place that you understand. So we do a lot of that heavy lifting, John, and it takes a lot of work. We've been working 6-7 days a week pretty much since the pandemic. We have a team we have people who work specifically in the weekends and during the week because it's just, there's so much paperwork. But we do that for you, and we've streamlined all through DocuSign, and we've made it really easy. You can have an account set up in 10 minutes with us.
That's fantastic, because that's what I think a lot of people are kind of afraid of, the process. And, I've been doing this for so long, and I noticed that everything with Noble Gold Investments is pretty straightforward and easy. And this is, that's the American way. That's the good way. I love it.
Yeah.
And I also heard you in another interview where you said you have a pretty cool process where precious metals are photographed and there's a signature, and then there's a way to know where their precious metals are. Can you run us through it? Where is it stored physically?
Yeah.
Where's the gold?
So we only use segregated storage. So there's 2 types of storage. There's segregated and commingled. Commingled means the vault will verify it, then they'll just put it in the vault, but they don't separate your stuff. What we offer, and the only storage we offer, is segregated. So it gets in, and the process is that, so they have somebody verify it first, and then once or twice a week, they have a person at the place. It's the vault manager. He basically lays out all your gold and silver on a table, kind of like this here. He verifies. So you've had already one person do it. Second person comes in, takes a picture of it. So they take a picture above, and then you see all your metals, and it has your receipt. He signs it. And we're the only company that offers this in the country, and we pay for it. It's our fee. We pay a separate fee for it. And then we send you that photo. So you see the exact metals that you purchased from us. And then it goes, basically they shrink wrap your gold and silver, and they slide it on your own shelf for the gold, and then for the silver. And then depending, some people have like a pallets of silver. So those are, they're segregated, but they're on a pallet, right? So that process, we came up with that process many years ago. I feel great about it. Everybody gets to see what they purchased. And then I'm going to go in about 3-4 weeks. I go to Texas, and we have one in Delaware. I go to the depositories 2 to 3 times a year, and I just do a blind audit. So basically what I do is I'll send 100 or 150 blind receipts. And then when I go, they'll have those metals out, and I'll go through with the vault manager, and I'll count all the pieces of gold and silver myself. And just to make sure, now, obviously I'm not counting every ounce that's there, because we have thousands and thousands of clients, but I do that blind audit, and I do it every year just to give another level of, and then those clients, I'll send an email out saying, hey, I did an audit of your account also, just to let you know. Just that makes me feel better. And it's all the metals are insured by Lloyd's of London. I mean, for all, things that can happen. So we are protected there, but I just like to get on the ground and see it. And by the way, I love doing it. It's just, I think it's, fascinating to just see the gold and silver. And I just like, I like that whole process of it. So it's fun for me to do that, but it just gives everybody a little extra level of comfort that I went and did that audit for.
I love that. I love that. You know, a man of word, and also I love that it's segregated, not commingled.
It has to be.
Yeah, I really appreciate that too. You know, we've heard some estimates, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you have some other obligations today, but we've heard some estimates of where gold and silver might be going until the end of the year, maybe until the end of next year. What is your projection? And we know there's a lot of factors, but what do you think? How's going to gold and silver? How's that going to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2000 level is sort of a level of resistance. So, I mean, there's definitely a chance it could drop low and hit 1950 this year at some point. But when you look at just the buying demand and what gold's been able to do in a market that typically you wouldn't see gold, because with them raising interest rates so much, the dollar has gotten really strong this year. I do think it's overvalued. It's an overvalued currency right now, but it has gotten strong because interest rates are high. So I think a lot of it has to do with is what interest rates are going to do, what the economy is going to do. And really, they've been able to keep raising interest rates, they've said, because unemployment is relatively low. And so it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out over the end of the year. My opinion, and no one believes this but me, but I think interest rates come down a little bit at the end of the year, and I think things open up, which means the dollar, in essence, would get a little bit weaker. And then I do believe gold would do really well in that scenario. I also think the equity market could do a little bit better in that scenario, too, at the end of the year if things kind of open up. Because big money managers, big corporations are really nervous right now to do any expansion or any hiring because money is so expensive for them. They don't really know what to do, and it's not clear. And with the Fed having this mandate of getting back to 2%, they're sort of stuck too. And so I believe they should raise that mandate because I don't think inflation's ever going back to 2%. I think they should raise it to 3%, and that would give them a little bit more flexibility because that's more of a realistic inflation number. If you think about the world, nobody's hitting 2% anymore, unless, as you said earlier, you just keep pulling out all the data. You can just keep pulling out the numbers. And of course you can hit 2% if you do it that way. But to get it to a realistic number, I think they should raise it to 3%, and that could open up. And I think we need to open up because, the real estate market, residential, commercial, is going to continue to just flounder until interest rates come down a little bit. There's no way the commercial market will survive with these high interest rates. So much debt is coming due this year. There's so many properties that the vacancy has skyrocketed. I mean, you're talking about office in the major markets, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, 28 to 32% vacancy conservatively. So that money that's coming due, all those loans that have to come back and refinance this year, they can't underwrite those deals. So you see these big corporations like Brookstone and all these companies just handing the keys over, right? Like, listen, we can't handle it. Take it back. And then what's the bank going to do with it? They can't fill offices. So there's a lot of debt problems going on this year, and it's going to affect a lot of major banks. And we're already seeing it affect regional banks. Regional banks need lower rates to survive. I can tell you that right now, because if you look what regional banks do, a lot of what they do is relationships with local business owners. They do a lot of times the regional markets. They handle some of the finances for people. But if people are afraid to invest, if they're afraid to buy real estate, these regional banks are not going to make it. And that's going to really hurt us. We need these rural America, regular America needs these regional banks. We can't just live on these major banks. It's not good for us as a country to just have these major banks controlling our money. And so that's another reason we need rates to come down, because if it doesn't, we're going to go from 4,300 banks down to, and historically, the amount of banks we have right now is so low. In 1928, how many banks? We had 30,000 banks in this country. We have 4,200, 4,300 banks, and just compare the population to today. So it's not a good.
And it's a consolidation of power, which, concentrated with a few big banks, and which is, always to the detriment of the people, to the detriment of everyone's well-being. So I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. So that's another big issue that's on the horizon. So I think listen, no one knows where gold goes. I think if you look at, the demand, if you look at who's acquiring gold, these central banks, typically central banks are net holders. They're not net sellers. So that's a good thing, right? Because they're just going to hold it for the long term. And then, even though it hurts us, if some of these countries go to gold-backed currencies, that would help the price of gold, right? So I think those are some of the things that we'll see out there that could affect the price of gold. So I wouldn't be surprised. And Bank of America and a lot of big Standard Charter, they've been predicting 2,400. And then I think the thing that I think silver breaking through 30 this year is very likely. And the demand for silver has been through the roof, and the uses for silver have been through the roof. So I think those are realistic, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of downside risk at some point this year. But I do think it's going to take off, and it could end up in the $2,200-$2,300 range for gold this year.
I'll be honest with you. We're very selective with whom we partner with, as I'm sure you are, because you want to do business and you want to do partnership with people you can trust.
Absolutely.
And that's why we're excited. We believe in gold and silver. It's what I feel most peaceful about, and that's just me personally. We have some crypto which I'm very iffy about, and it's kind of if it's a loss, it's a loss.
That's exactly what I think too.
But I really feel very positive. I sleep very well knowing we hold gold and silver, and so my suggestion is, click the link down below, Inspire Tribe. Check it out. Check out Noble Gold Investments. Have that conversation, and let them run you through it for your particular situation, and talk to them and see what's best for you. I can just tell you, we've been in this for quite some time. We feel really good about it. So with that being said, Collin Plume, president of NobleGoldInvestments.com, thank you so much for your time and expertise today.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. And we hope to have you back soon. And Inspire Tribe, thank you all for watching. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll be back with you again very, very soon. Would you like to get access to exclusive content as well as being part of a community of like-minded people posting, sharing, and connecting on a deeper level? Come join the Inspired community on Locals, where we share more intimately and privately and do our Coffee and Truth live streams, as well as our Honey Talks show, the only inspired show with Christine Nolan. The Inspired community is absolutely uncensored and unfiltered, a place for truth, authenticity, and freedom. Join us now at inspired.locals.com or click on a link in the video description.